Good day! This is Desiree A. Lisherdo and I'll be your discussant for today's. Our topic to be discussed is all about reproduction among flowering plants in grade 5. Okay, those are our learning outcomes. Number 1, describe sexual reproduction in plants. Number 2, describe asexual reproduction in plants. Number 3, describes sexual reproduction in animals. And number 4, describe asexual reproduction in animals. As you can see, these are the structure of a flower. First, we have the anther. The anther produces pollen, the male gametes. And next is we have the filament. Supportive stalk holds up the anther. And next we have the sepal. The sepal is protective structures shielding in the delicate reproductive organs within. And next is we have the petals, attract pollinators and shield the delicate parts inside. And next we have the stigma, sticky surface that captures pollen grains. Next we have the style, long tube that connects the stigma to the ovary. And next we have the ovary, contains the ovules, which once fertilized will develop into seeds. And next we have the pestle, female reproductive part of flowers. Study the structure of a flower, and later on we're going to have a activity which you will going to identify the parts of the flower. Okay, we have activity number 1, sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Can you recall the all parts of the flower? So in this activity, you are going to identify the parts of a flower. Okay, this is the answer key. Let's review. First, we have the anther, parts of a flower. We have the stamen, the filament, the sepal, the petal, the ovary, the style, the pestle, and the stigma. I will going to show you a video in reproduction among flowering plants.
In this video, we will be looking at sexual reproduction in plants. Did you know that there are an estimated 390,900 plant species known to science? This diversity of plant species is in part due to sexual reproduction. In plants, sexual reproduction is carried out in the flowers. The flowers contain the sexual organs. Let's start with labeling the different parts of a flower. The petals and the sepals help protect the flower bud and can be brightly colored or scented to attract pollinators. The stem and the receptacle are the parts that connect the flower to the rest of the plant. The stamen is the male part of the flower. It consists of the anther, where pollen is produced, and the filament, which is the stalk that supports the anther. These structures are responsible for the production and the positioning of pollen, the male gamete.
And now let's move on to pollination. What is pollination? Pollination is the process of transferring pollen grains from the male part or the anther of one flower to the female part, which is the stigma, and another flower of the same species. And also, why it is important? It is important because it leads to seed formation, essential for plant growth and reproduction and the production of fruits that humans can eat. We have the methods of pollination. We have by insects or by wind. For example, in by insects, we have roses, daisies, and sunflowers. So, by insects like bees and butterflies carries pollens from one flower to flower while they collect nectar. And by wind also, wind can also carry pollen to other flowers. These pollen grains are lightly weight that can be easily carried by breeze. For example of methods of pollination by wind, we have the dandelion and grasses. Now I will going to give you an activity. The title of our activity is Be a Pollination Expert. All you have to do is choose a specific plant or flower species, research and identify its pollination method, for example, insects, wind, or water, and describe the plant's unique features and adaptation for attaching pollinators such as color, flower structure, and scent. As you can see, this is a sample answer of the activity that you're going to do. So be a pollination expert. We have the plant or flower species, we have the pollination method, we have the features supporting pollination method, and all you have to do is do the activity and answer like this. And now, before we move on to another explanation about pollination, I have a video here of the process of pollination.
Sperms have flowers, and these are the reproductive structures. Many flowers contain both male and female parts. Some flowers contain only male or only female parts. The male parts make up the stamen. The stamen includes the filament and the anther. The filament is a stalk that supports the anther. The anther is a rather fluffy structure that produces pollen, which we'll get to soon. For female parts, the pistil. This pistil can be made up of one or more units called carpels. Generally, each carpel contains three main parts: the stigma, style, and ovary. We know sometimes pistil and carpel get used interchangeably, but that gets tricky when you're talking about a pistil that might have multiple fused carpels, for example. While a pistil can contain one or more carpels, this pistil only has one carpel, so this pistil only features one stigma, one style, and one ovary. The stigma, I like to say sticky stigma because pollen is supposed to stick onto this sticky structure. The style, which is the stalk that supports the stigma, then the ovary at the base of the structure. The ovary is where fertilization occurs, and seeds are formed within it. The ovary, as we had mentioned, ripens into fruit. There are some parts of the flower that are neither male nor female. Sepals, for example. Sepals protect a developing flower bud. Or petals, for example. Fancy structures that help attract pollinators. Which brings us back to the bees and also the steps of angiosperm.
Okay, now I'll be going to explain the process of pollination. Number 1, we have the pollen production. The anther produces pollen which contains the male reproductive cells or the gametes. And second, we have the attracting pollinators. The flower may use its colorful petals, fragrance, or nectar to attack pollinators like bees, butterflies, or birds. And number 3, we have the transfer of pollen. When a pollinator visits a flower or nectar or pollen, it brushes against the anther, picking up and carrying pollen grains on its body. And number 4, we have the arrival of another flower. The pollinator moves to another flower of the same species or a compatible one. Some are previously collected pollen may rub off onto the stigma of the second flower. And now let's move on to fertilization. What is fertilization? Fertilization is a process by which male and female reproductive cells or the gametes combine initiate to develop of a seed. Why it is important? It is essential for maintaining the diversity of plant species, the functioning of ecosystems, and food production. Okay, this is the process of fertilization. Fertilization, the pollen on the stigma germinates and sends a pollen tube down into the flower's ovary. This tube delivers the male gametes to the ovule where fertilization occurs. Number 2, we have the seed formation. The ovule develops into a seed, and the flower's ovary matures into a fruit, including the seeds. And number 3, we have the seed despiral and germination. The mature Number 3, we have the seed despiral and germination. The mature fruit can be eaten by animals, carried by the wind, or float in water, allowing seeds to be carried out to new location and grow into a new plant. Now, we will having another activity. So, thinking time. Can you propose one method by which non-flowering plants reproduce? And now, this is the sample answer of the given activity for your reference and making the activity. So, thinking time, we have the spore production. So, non-flowering plants like ferns, mosses, algae release tiny reproductive structures called spores. These spores can be carried by wind or water to new location where they can grow into new plants. And now, let's proceed to the asexual reproduction or vegetative propagation in plants. Many plants that produce seeds can also reproduce by asexual, means asexual reproduction involves only one parent. Asexual reproduction in seed plant is called vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation is the development of a new plant from a stem, root, or leaf of a parent plant. In this process, there is no union of an egg cell and sperm cell, and no seed forms. And now, I'll be showing you the video of a asexual reproduction in plants.
To get to know plant asexual reproduction. In asexual plant reproduction, flowers don't intervene. There's no need for a gamete of female and male cell. In asexual reproduction, there's only one parent, so the new plants will be genetically identical to this. New plants can originate from a single cell, tissue, an organ, or a part of a mother plant. There are two types of asexual reproduction: vegetative reproduction and reproduction without seeds. Let's get to know them. If you want to get to know vegetative reproduction, what root vegetables, bulbs, stolons, and rhizomes are, if you want to learn how plants without seeds reproduce, what mosses and ferns are,
Now, I'll be discussing you the types of asexual reproduction or the vegetative propagation in plants. Number 1, we have the use of cuttings. A cutting is a plant part that has been removed from the parent plant and used to grow a new plant. The plant part is a cutting that is often a stem with leaves attached. The cutting may be placed in water, in wet soil, or in some other wet substances. Once the cutting is planted in the soil, it will grow new stems and leaves. Some important food plants such as sugarcane, sweet potato, and many ornamental plants are grown from stem cuttings. Number 2, we have the use of grafting. What is a grafting? Grafting is a method in which a cutting from one plant is attached to the rooted stem of another plant. As it grows, the cuttings become part of the rooted plant, but it retains its own traits. Grafting is usually done in trees to increase the amount of fruit a tree produces. Grafting can also be used to grow fruits on trees that resist drought and disease. Number 3, we have the grown from corms, bulbs, and tubers. New plants can also be grown from corms, bulbs, and tubers. A corm is a thickened underground stem. Gabi is a plant that forms corms. Onions can be propagated from enlarged rounded buds called bulbs. Tubers are enlarged food storing underground stems that contain many small buds called eyes. A new plant can be grown from each eye, as in potatoes. And lastly, we have number 4, grown from leaves. New plants can also be grown from whole leaves or parts of leaves. Usually, only the fleshy leaves such as bigoina and katakataka can be grown from their leaves. Vegetative propagation is useful for many reasons. New banana plants are grown from suckers. Grapes can be grown by vegetative propagation so that the fruits do not contain seeds. Seedless fruits are easier to eat. This method is often a faster method of growing plants than growing them from seeds. And now I'll be giving you task or assignment. All you have to do is to sketch or take a photo of a flowering plant common in your local areas. Investigate the precise processes of pollination and fertilization that allow it to reproduce. Am I clear? So this would be your assignment. And that would be all in reproduction among flowering plants. I hope that you have learned some new knowledge about my video. Thank you!